Hey Summoners, Mithras here. I hope you enjoy this video. I've spent a lot of time putting it together, so please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for additional information. Just to give you a little context, we're going to jump right into it, but as you can see, I was working on finding rune drop rates as well as regular drop rates for DB10. I started back in approximately November. You can go ahead and check out my blog at gamertagmithras.com to kind of show that this is something that I've actually been working on for quite some time. Originally, I was setting out to complete around 1,000 runs, hopefully to make it statistically significant and things like that. Unfortunately, I was only able to get to 797 runs completed for DB10. One of the reasons why this happened was directly related to the update for 3.2.1, where they claim to have removed the 4-star runes from the DB10 runs, which obviously we know that they have. Now, the big key to that is that they said it wasn't actually going to change drop rates, and that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about as we go through some of the data here that I have to present. So, again, we're going to jump right into it. Please like, subscribe, and essentially what I've done is I've built a kind of story slash important things that I do want to highlight as we kind of drill down through the data. Now, the first piece here, obviously, like I said, is I was able to complete Giants B10 797 times. Now, as we move into the next piece here, overall, when we look at the completion of the runs, we find that runes are dropped roughly 69% of the time, and other drops, so this is going to include craft materials, Rainbow Mon, your mystical scrolls, and so forth, are dropped roughly 31% of the time. Now, why this is important is because when we look at it collectively, like they said, because of the patch, once you remove the 4-star runes, this should still hold true. So the idea would be that you're going to have 5 and 6-star runes now dropping within that 69% parameter, which is great. And as we get through this, I'll kind of go on and explain a little bit more about that piece as well. So the next piece that we have here is the actual drop rates that I found relative to the runes within that 69%. So I just wanted to highlight that so you're not confused. I do have the breakdown overall as well, but I think it's more important to understand that within this 69% drops, here's the drop rates. I also put them in value of where they're dropped the most, from highest to lowest. Now, originally when I started going through the data, it kind of looked like it was even, but in all honesty, it's not. There is a big difference that I started noticing the more and more I went over it, and I don't think that, I know that you have the random number generator stuff. I don't think, based off the amount of runs that I made, that they would actually drift closer, which is kind of interesting. It makes more sense because I feel like the Despair rune is a better rune out of those 5 anyway, so it's going to be relatively harder to get. Now, the thing that I'm wondering as well is if it's actually the same for Dragon's 10. Now, I want to go through and do that data for everyone. I'm just going to let you know it took me a significant amount of time to pull all this stuff together and even to get to even granular levels. I've spent a few days just typing in the data. It's a huge pain, but I'm extremely excited about this because on top of that, I got another surprise later here for you around my Chasing Trophy Monsters, where I had made in the last episode some minor theory around mystical scrolls, which you're going to have to hang on to find out. So this next piece after that I think is actually really important as well is kind of the flat versus percentage base. I've done the same thing here. I've gone through relative to the rune drops within the 60% to drill down. One of the things that I want to point out is I did not do slots 1 through 6. This was already an extremely painful experience like I talked about for the data, but I still think this really hits home to the point. And the major piece is typically we're all chasing the percentage drops anyway. And as you know, certain slots or certain percentage type things like attack or HP percent tend to drop more because they're either going to be in your 2, 4, 6 slot kind of a deal. Now, the big importance here is we know that speed only drops in 2, crit damage only drops in 4. So here's something to really pay attention to. So as you can see, as we drill down even further, things like your crit damage percent, your resistance, your accuracy, and your crit rates are extremely low. They're very, very low drops. So as you compound and look at the amount of runs that you're making, it's getting more and more difficult to get these things. And just as I was going through my monsters and kind of going through these things, it was kind of fun to see the different drops that I had, because it's like, oh yeah, there's that, finally, that 6-star speed rune that I had, which is really rare. So, and this data again is across all the drops from the 4, 5, and 6-star, which I want to point that out because it is important. But as we move forward, we'll kind of talk more and more about those pieces. So the next thing that I want to move into here is what everyone else always wants to know is the percentage of the rarities for the runes. So we have rare, hero, and legendary. So again, the 4, 5, 6 stars all aggregated, you have about a 70% chance for rare, a 25% chance for hero, and then just legendary in general is roughly 4%. Now, one of the big things that I highlight here is just for the 6-star runes, legendary is like a 0.36% drop rate. Yes, that is correct. In some of my other blogs, I got very lucky. I happened to get, when I first started tracking this stuff before I got even more detailed, I happened to get a couple really, really nice 6-star legendary drops. So yeah, that random number generator effect. But I do believe that it is probably really, really low at that 6-star level. And as we kind of drill down and have gone through this data, I think you can see that just because in general, your 4% drop rate for legendary across all is already still really low. So every 100 runs that you're making where you have that 70% drop of that rune, you're going to get a legendary maybe 4 times. That's a lot of time that you're spending running. So this is very important, and that's why I want to point this out. So the other piece, and I apologize, I had made another slide for this part, kind of going back through the data to tell the story. Unfortunately, it got lost, and I forgot to save it. So I think it's more important to get the information out there to you guys. But if you can feel free to go back and look at the information. But ideally, what I want to do is if you take a, let's say, for instance, your Swift, you want a legendary, and you want it to be 6-star, you're going to take each of those percentages that I have there and you're going to multiply them against each other to get to that point. So you're going to have a chance of, I believe, give me one sec here and I will pull it up for myself. So the odds of your rune drop are going to be 70%. So that's the first piece. The next piece is your Swift drop rate's roughly 24% within that 70%. Then after that, your odds of getting a 6-star, again, with this version, were roughly 15%. And then the odds of getting the legendary, obviously the 0.36, and then the last piece was the speed. When you multiply all that stuff together, honestly, it was like 1.8 times in 1 million runs that you would get that specific of that rune. Now, one of the things that I do want to talk about as we transition again, and I just realized that the next slide that I wanted to show I also lost, but what's important is the numbers. So if we look at the 4, 5, and 6-star, so I'm going to just quote again the percentages of what you get. So at 4, based off this information, you're at actually at 21%. 5, you're at 63%, and 6, you're at 15. So what's interesting is that your 4 drops are almost the same as your 6-star runes, which I bet a lot of you didn't know that. The other thing is, when we go back to the patch and update and talk about the removal of that 4, if we take the percentage relative to the amount of times that you're going to get a 6 versus a 5, which is roughly 1 in 4, and extrapolate that information, that's going to give you a rough rate of getting out of that overall 69%. 80% of the time you're going to get a 5-star, 20% of the time you're going to get a 6. And I'll go on to test this. I have seen some other videos already that wanted to test this that do prove this percentage was actually correct, which is extremely exciting because I know it validates all this data then. So again, like I said, and if we want to get even more detailed on specifics of those things and break it down, not even just against that rune drop rate, but collectively, and really push that data out, the odds just get worse on those rune specific drops for legendary. And then on top of that, I would say, I guess it gets offset now by the additional 5% chance that the patch gave you for getting a 6-star rune. So now that I've covered the runes, the next piece that I want to run into is kind of what I've coined the other drops, which are extremely important, and it kind of ties back into one of the surprises I had for you guys in regards to my chasing trophy monsters video. So this next piece here that we have is an aggregated view of percentages, again, relative to the other drops. So within that percentage, sorry, 1 second here. Within that percentage of the 31%, this is the percent of chance that you're going to get these items. Now, the thing is, again, is if we look at it collectively, it's going to actually be a lot worse. But if we get out of 3 chances out of every 10 runs, we're going to get one of these items. You're most likely, again, categorically from the values that we have here from high to low, you're most likely going to get a symbol of harmony, for example. What I did find really interesting, and I apologize, I just realized that I put the mystical scroll at the bottom where it shouldn't be. But what's great is you do get the shape-shifting stones. But the real thing is, which we've all known for a while, I think it was probably 5-6 months ago, they really killed you on the unknown scrolls. Can you believe the fact that getting an unknown scroll drop now is almost the same as getting a mystical scroll? That is terrible. They used to be roughly around 20%. So it really changes how you think about leveling up your monsters, using your fodder. The biggest thing, and here's another tip that I found, is make sure you utilize your friend points. This is one of the things where you can get the fodder and store it. You're not just going to be able to mass, dump your monsters in for the XP anymore. You're actually going to have to take the time to level them, and it's a huge pain. So one of the things that I do want to point out too is there's very, very low drop rates on that symbol of transcendence. Now I know it's been pointed out that, hey, you can run Giants 10, and you're going to find, and that should not say DB10, I just realized, I apologize. That's terrible. You're probably better off running Dragons 10 to go through and actually get those violent runes, the runes that you want there. I'm also guessing, as you can see here, kind of Symbol of Chaos is one of the main, better crafting material drops. It's probably going to have a higher chance in Dragons. I would guess it's probably that 13 for Transcendence and then probably 8 for Chaos. But again, I'll have to go through and do the data for you guys. So that's exciting. Now, here's the piece that I want to move into next, and I do have drill down information. I even go as far to the level of, within the symbol of harmony, how many are you going to get 10, how many are you going to get 11, 12, stuff like that, drop rates. For this video, I did not want to do that. It gets extremely detailed, and I thought that the higher level is better for you. Now, moving in again to this next piece, here's the point that I want to tie into the mystical scrolls for the chasing trophy monsters. Buy premium packs. That's it. Simple. And here's why. So if you look at all the data, and originally the natural belief was that, hey, if you actually spend the time, do the runs, waste it on the energy refills, you can outstrip and harvest more mystical scrolls. I don't believe that's true. And here's one of the reasons why that's not necessarily the case. If you have 750 crystals, you can get roughly 25 refills off that. Those 25 refills are going to give you roughly 2.3k energy, which is going to give you roughly 200 to 300 runs. Yeah, 200 to 300 runs. Now you're going, oh, but I can get additional energy and all these other things in there, and I can farm crystals and all those things. Well, to be honest, in 800 runs, I got 37 crystal drops. Yeah, that was it. Literally, which is kind of cool that I found out that they actually once in a while will give you a 2-drop on the crystals, and I can give you a better deal here. Yeah, so that entire 800 runs I made, I got 40 crystals. Of those 800 runs, twice I got ×2 and 36 ×1. So yeah, you're not really going to refill a lot. You're going to get one refill off that entire thing. So if you look at it this way, and we look at the numbers and break it down a little bit more, roughly I got 8 mystical scrolls. I ran it 800 times. That's 1 in 100. All you need to know. It's going to take you much longer to farm the mystical scrolls than use your crystals to buy the premium packs. Now, just my advice on that piece, I always was withholding crystals because I was thinking that, hey, I can spend my time, do the grinding to get the scrolls. Not necessarily the case. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot. There's definitely been a lot of discoveries. I look forward to trying to put together more of these for you guys to share. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Get the word out. I really appreciate it. I have already started documenting the after patch stuff to try and go back against this data and see how close or not close it was for you guys. So again, check out the website. Definitely, I do a weekly blog there talking about my progression and so forth. So again, please like, subscribe to the channel for additional videos, and look forward to seeing you guys around. Till next time, summoners, keep on summoning.